Welcome back. What an interesting panel session it was. We hope that you have penciled down some of the best practices on creating a wow candidate experience from our last session. Coming up next, we have an interesting case study session on the topic building diverse, equal, and inclusive organization culture. We know that a powerful diversity and inclusion strategy can help organizations attract and retain top talent, stay profitable, and drive innovative results. In this case study, we will understand how organizations can shape up their D&I initiatives to improve the overall bottom line and create a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive workforce. To take us through this learning journey, we have the pleasure of hosting Roman Matla, Director, APAC, Diversity and Employee Engagement, Google, as our esteemed speaker for today. Roman's professional career spans over 26 years in a variety of technology, HR, and business analysis leadership roles within the investment banking, mining, and resources and technology industries across North America and Asia Pacific region. In his current role, Roman and his team are responsible for delivering a globally aligned yet regionally tailored D&I strategy and set of initiatives that support Google's business opportunities around the region. And before I pass it on to Roman, I would like to remind our audience that the hashtag for the summit is #ETHRWorld. So keep sharing your learnings from different sessions with the larger audience on social media using this hashtag. Let's spread the knowledge. And now let me invite Roman on the screen. Welcome, Roman, and the frame is all yours.
Shashi, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Wow, it's always humbling to hear your bio read back to you. And I'm never really quite sure if I'm comfortable with that. But as you heard, I'm Roman Matla, and my preferred pronouns are he and him, and I'm based here in Singapore as the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for Google. So a dream job for me. First, before we start, I'd really like to thank the Economic Times for inviting me to today's event. I hope that everyone that's dialing in is doing everything that they can to stay safe, to stay healthy, and to stay well. There's absolutely nothing more important nowadays. The topic on diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, is very close to my heart. And it's wonderful that we have a platform like today to come together and exchange ideas on how we can build a more diverse, a more equitable, and a more inclusive workforce for all employees. So today, I'd like to share with you how we approach DEI at Google and the lessons that we've learned over the years. So here at Google, we've been long committed to making DEI part of everything that we do, from how we build our products to how we build our workforce. And this commitment starts from the very top with our CEO, Sundar Pichai. He once said that when you're building a company or leading a country, a diverse mix of voices and backgrounds, as well as experiences, lead to better decisions, better discussions, and better outcomes for everyone. And I couldn't agree more. Building and growing a diverse workforce is not just the right thing to do, it drives business results, simple as that. And we see this in action at Google. When different viewpoints are shared and included, it sparks more innovation and ideas amongst our teams. We're able to build better products and create smarter processes and run things way more smoothly. When we approach DEI, we're guided by 7 key principles, which I'd like to go into over the next few slides with you. So let's look at principle number 1. Start with transparency. We've been publishing Google's Diversity Annual Report since 2014, and we're one of the first in our industry to publish this data, which catalyzed the conversation of diversity in the tech sector. Since then, for the last 7 years, we've published more and more granular data than any other company, not only around representation, but also on hiring as well as retention. In fact, our report is the largest publicly available diversity data sets in our industry, and it's used by policymakers and officials alike. Being transparent keeps us accountable, and it allows us to gain clarity and insights on how we're progressing, but also around areas we need to improve on. Principle number 2, use data to inform decisions. At Google, it's probably no surprise, we use data to inform everything that we do, from the way we develop products to the way we design our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. But all that data is only useful if we put it into practice. When we published the first diversity report, we did so in a very specific way using data we had on hand. And this data was largely defined by government reporting obligations, mostly in the United States. While that data was helpful for compliance reasons, it wasn't tailored for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So since then, we've grown in our understanding of DEI and how we should be measuring and discussing this work and who should be included in our data. We've put a lot of thought into how we can be far more inclusive of more and more identities that exist around the world. In 2018, we began sharing beyond representation. For the first time, we published hiring and attrition numbers. We showed representation at the intersection of both race and gender. In 2019, we began gathering data on other aspects of identity via our voluntary self-ID campaign, where we asked Googlers if they identify as, say, LGBTQ, or non-binary genders, or having a disability, whether visible or invisible. And we did so globally. The majority of Googlers in every region around the world have participated in this campaign. And in fact, Google's response rate is double that of industry standards. We analyzed demographics alongside inclusion data to help understand our employees' experience working at Google and to inform and expand our strategy in a data-driven way. And we're putting this data to use. Self-ID has been used to inform our company-wide commitments towards accessibility, amongst other initiatives. With DEI, most people think of the data surrounding representation. Now, we view representation as the end state of a very simple equation. It's hiring minus attrition. That's why we include these two inputs in our report. And to give you a sense of the data we found through the 2021 report, here in Asia Pacific, more than 1 in 3 Googlers are women, and representation of women at leadership levels was close to 30%. In 2021, the percentages of women and men hired in each region largely mirrored what we see for the overall workforce representation. Attrition rates at Google overall are pretty low. In 2021, the attrition rate for women in APAC, our Asia Pacific region, was 22% lower than the overall attrition rate in the company. Let's move to principle number 3. Approach diversity, equity, and inclusion as a business challenge. Okay? At Google, we approach DEI like any other business challenge. We take exactly the same steps. We set clear goals and priorities that are aligned with what we want to achieve. We set up a dedicated team with experts and the right levels of resourcing. We put together an action plan with clear initiatives, timelines, and owners. We review the progress regularly with our leadership, and we track metrics to make reporting available to our leaders. And principle number 4, everybody's ownership, starting with leadership. DEI has to be a shared responsibility for everyone. This is not an HR program. Bothers me when I hear that. And it starts from our leadership. We know frontline managers have a special responsibility as they are the face of Google to their teams, and they have the most direct impact on Googlers' daily experience. And finally, everyone can be an ally and also play an active role. On leadership, as progress has accelerated, so too has the effort by myself and other Google leaders to achieve a company-wide goal of fostering a representative and inclusive workplace for everyone. Frontline managers have the most impact on whether an employee feels included, so we make it a core competence of the manager's job and embed DEI in all manager experiential learning programs. And we use all opportunities to show up and talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, either in company-wide meetings, business reviews, offsites, and we encourage everyone to get involved and to take action. You see, we need to ensure that diversity, equity, and inclusion is not isolated in a separate function like HR. It's got to be spread across the entire organization, from the junior-most intern all the way through to the CEO. For example, at Google, our newly rebranded LEAD team, which stands for Leading Through Equity and Diversity, sets the global strategy and adds the expertise on DEI. And then each functional area, as well as our markets, are then responsible for adapting that strategy to the specific issues or nuances or opportunities they face. And then lastly, for executing on that plan. So it's truly, best way of looking at it would be a global approach. We also set up an APAC-wide DEI council last year, and that's made up of senior leaders from different business units who meet monthly to review our progress, to course correct if need be, to approve any new initiatives, and hold each other accountable for our collective success. We also want to make sure that our employees are part of the journey. Over the years, Googlers have been organizing and initiating grassroots events in community groups that are part of or that they are part of or allies to. One example I'd like to share is our Accessibility Week, where we have Google volunteers who organize this annually for the wider Google community to attend. Events like this allow us to educate Googlers about accessibility and disability, to inspire them to think about the future of inclusive design and celebrate Googlers doing important work towards accessibility. Through such initiatives and events, we've been able to engage thousands of Googlers every single year. Next, Google values inclusion as a way to leverage the diversity of backgrounds and perspectives of Googlers to strengthen our culture. It creates better products and it grows our business. In fact, over 12,000 engineers have gone through training on inclusive design to ensure their product work for all the different communities the company's products serve. 25% of the product inclusion champions actually reside here in Asia Pacific. To build technology for everyone, we need to have diverse perspectives that are embedded into each step of our design, our engineering, and our testing processes. Let me move to principle number 5. Embedding diversity as part of our culture. DEI is a strong pillar of culture. So we've included it in our values. Our values are how we conduct ourselves in the pursuit of our mission. These are not to be led by some and followed by others. They're to be owned personally by each of us and collectively by all of us. They are, at the heart, a balance of trust extended and responsibility accepted. And we call this the 3 respects. Respect the user, respect the opportunity, and respect each other. We're also proud to support our employee resource groups, or ERGs. They provide additional support and a sense of community for the underrepresented employees, as well as for their allies. ERGs are critical to bring the voice of underrepresented groups to the table and input into our strategy and execution. We also have champions spread across Google that are our eyes and our ears on the ground to make sure that we understand the texture of the issues and the opportunities faced by our employees. So far, more than 35,000 employees actively participate as members of our 16 distinct employee resource groups. We're proud that we recently launched 2 new groups to reach Googlers with families and Googlers who identify as mixed race across Asia Pacific. Principle number 6. I mentioned this a bit earlier about being global. So we have to think globally and act locally. As Google continues to grow, we have a responsibility to scale our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and increase pathways to tech in the cities and the sites, as well as the markets Google calls home. For example, across Southeast Asia, we're proud to support the Asia Foundation through our philanthropic arm, google.org, to equip more than 200,000 underserved small business owners, underemployed youth, and people with disabilities with the digital skills and tools, ensuring that at least 60% of the beneficiaries of these programs are women. We need to build on that momentum by investing even broader pathways to technology. So this is a long-term goal for us. And that's why we've continued to strengthen our partnerships with local organizations and local communities. In Singapore, where I'm based, for example, we've been supporting organizations like Saturday Kids and 21C, Girls to Run Code in the Community, a program that offers free coding classes to children from low-income families to learn basic coding skills and inspire them to discover and explore technology. With the support from local partners and the local government, we've been able to promote and ensure diversity among the program participants. And lastly, let me get to principle number 7. This is a marathon. In fact, it's more like an ultra marathon. Consider this: somebody born in 1998, the year Google was founded, is only now just completing university. This speaks to the fact that the honest way for us to approach our work is to understand the real challenge that will come in 15 to 20-year horizons. And we've got to plan and invest accordingly. Systemic change is sustainable change. And even incremental progress on hiring, progression, and retention is hard-won. Only a holistic approach to these issues will produce meaningful and sustainable change. We must continue our work to expand the talent pool externally and improve our culture internally if we want to create equitable outcomes and inclusion for everyone. As our Chief Diversity Officer, Melanie Parker, says, our job is not done until every Googler feels like they belong. And we're not going to rest until we get there. So here's a quick recap of our 7 principles. 1, start with transparency. 2, use data to inform your decisions. 3, approach diversity as a business challenge. 4, ensure everybody's ownership, starting with leadership. 5, embed diversity as part of your culture. 6, think global, but act local. And 7, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And this brings me to the end of my short presentation. If you're keen to learn more about the work that we're doing at Google, please visit our diversity site at diversity.google.com, or of course, just Google it. Once again, I want to thank you for having me here today, and please do enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roman. Those were indeed some great insights on building a diverse, equal, and inclusive organizational culture. So good to see how this is driven from top in Google. I really love the 7 principles that you shared about transparency, data-informed decisions, approaching D&I as business challenge, everybody owning it, embedding diversity in culture, thinking globally and acting locally. And yes, it is a marathon. Thank you once again, Roman, for sharing Google's best practices with us. Well, with that, we conclude this session with Roman, but folks, stay tuned as we are all set to listen to Gulf Energy Development Public Company's story on their experience of embracing people transformation strategies through growth journey. See you all on the other side.